this guy wants to be a tattooer and he knows construction. I'm building a shop.
Exactly.
Hey, you want to work with me?
Yeah.
What your first day of this apprenticeship? I need you to sheetrock this room, mud it out, and
I put a sink in actually. Yeah, I put a sink in the first one. I do remember that. That was funny. But like, I was like, you know what? At least I was using like the construction to help me get into tattooing in like more ways than one. So hey, it worked out. Like, you know.
Oh, dude, that is a traditional apprenticeship in a certain way, because oftentimes all these owners are just like, they need something. This guy needed construction. You could help him out with it.
Yeah.
You know, other people, they might need you to come. Maybe they're painting their house, or maybe they need somebody to do this task that they're sick of doing. And that's the payment from the apprentice to the teacher is like, look, you're going to help me. You're going to make my life better somehow.
Yeah.
And if you can, I'll bring you into this private little community of tattoo artists, you know? So it's a fair trade as long as everyone's being honest about it.
Shit's about to go down. I'm feeling something in my spirit.
Chats and Tatts with Aaron Della Vedova.
Hello, friends, lovers, awesome creators of art and fans of Chats and Tatts. Welcome back with me, your host, Aaron Della Vedova, with another episode. Today, I have an artist on the show, a tattoo artist. His work's outstanding. Well, how would I describe it? It's photorealism. It is. It's color photorealism. It's black and gray photorealism. But he brings a little flavor to his work that tweaks it and twists it, kind of surrealistically modifies it, which gives it its own unique voice. Really nice stuff. Really super sweet dude with a cool journey and life story. So he came out here to do a little guest spot with us at Guru Tattoo. And I said, dude, why don't you come on the show? And he was down. He was already kind of a fan. And so I'm honored to have him here today. So everybody out there, please welcome my guest today, Cam Morton. But in the industry, he is known simply as Boney. Welcome.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. I'm stoked you're here. We don't know each other that well, actually. We're just kind of getting to know each other since you've been here the last couple of days.
Right.
Only from your work, from Instagram. I saw you on there. You wrote me, said you were digging the show. And I'm like, dude, I went to your page and I saw your stuff. And I was like, shit's dope. I'm like, hey, you want to come out and hang? And you know, I didn't know. And you said, yeah, because you're from Cleveland. So it wasn't like an easy trip. You had to fly out here for this shit. So thank you for coming. Thank you for making the effort.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's actually my first time in California altogether. So, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No shit. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a good trip.
How many
so far,
days are you here for? I know that you had to work. You tattooed the last couple of days. You got a little time out in the city to see shit. And then today, after the show, you're going to have the rest of the day. You got another few days here? You got to go straight back?
Yeah, I think we got till tomorrow. We leave tomorrow at 7 p.m., something like that. And,
good. You'll get all the rest of today, tonight, and tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll give you some spots you should probably definitely check out before you leave.
Please do. Please do.
For sure. And some restaurants too. Well, let's get right to it. I want to know, I always want to know when I see people performing at your level, like how's it all kick off? Like, how do you end up in this unique position doing the things you do? And it usually starts when you're a young man. Like, you know, you're a tattooer, but no one starts as a tattooer. We start as artists.
Right.
Usually. I mean, maybe there's somebody who just went from right to the tattoo machine without even touching the pencil. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe there is one, but usually that's not the case. So maybe talk to us a little bit about, you know, how you were raised and when art starts coming in and who endorsed you and who supported you and who told you you were full of shit, and how did it all come together where you became an artist? And then after that, we'll hear more about from that point, how you became a tattoo artist.
Yeah. So basically where like my whole art journey like started was from when I was a kid, man. It was just like comic books. That's the first thing I can think of. I remember I had my cousin, he always used to draw, and he would show maybe like always drawing like Spawn and stuff like that, just different comic book characters. Right. So I'd always like watch him do that, and I was always just like very interested. Just didn't know why, just like kind of locked in. I'm just watching the process, you know? Right. And then as I got older, like looking at like all the different like comic book characters and stuff, and seeing all like the different art forms and different artists like in the industry. I had my uncle, he would always show me like stuff like Iron Man and like, you know, like Spider-Man, all these like different poses that they be in. And I was always just like really just curious, just like how it was made, you know? And
how does a human being create that?
Right. Well, that's why I was always like kind of locked in with like how was this made, you know? And after like watching my cousin draw a little bit, I just picked up a pencil and just started like trying to mimic as much as I could, and just like watching, like he did a circle this way, so I tried to do a circle that way or whatever. I'd be like, yo, draw something so I can watch you type thing. But this is like before YouTube, by the way.
So your cousin, this person, what's his name?
His name is Joe.
So big part of your story. I mean, he
I would say
kind of
he's
lit the
pretty
fire.
massive, pretty massive part. Yeah.
Kudos to Joe.
Yeah, kudos to Joe. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Sullen Clothing. Ryan, Jeremy, my friends, huge supporters of the tattoo community, awesome human beings. Could not be more proud to have them as a sponsor. If you're an artist out there and you think it would be cool to have your design on one of their t-shirts, send that over to design@sullenclothing.com. And if you're just somebody out there who loves tattoo art and wants a sick t-shirt with some of the best tattooers in the world who put their art on those t-shirts, just hit up their website and grab yourself one. Thanks again, Sullen. And now back to the show. I honestly, let me back up though.
Yeah.
I'm joking a little, but I don't know. It is, I'm 52, looking back on life, and it's funny how one little character can show up in a person's life and change their entire direction. Not saying you wouldn't be here without Joe. Yeah. Maybe not. I mean, that lit a fire,
Who
right?
knows?
You know, and I've got my own story in that way. But my Uncle Bobby, you listening?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm here today because of Uncle Bobby, because he kind of did that for me. But that's cool. I like that. That's magical. And maybe we're in a simulation and he's not even real. Or maybe God exists and he's the angel he sent you. Whatever. But this character shows up and he inspires you to get curious about art. Yeah. You do get curious. You start drawing comic books. You start mimicking the cool shit you're seeing.
Yeah.
And take us from there.
Yeah, that just kind of got my drawing career kind of started. And I wouldn't even consider myself like necessarily like great. It was just like, a lot of people like would be around, like, if I drew, I was just like, I thought it was just like a natural thing, you know what I mean? And, like I definitely started noticing people were taking notice, like family members and other people like that.
You're getting some high fives, you're getting some
love. They're like, oh, you're good at this, dude. Like, like I'm like, oh, am I? Like I didn't really mean anything to me at the point, but I just know I could like sit down and do that one thing for hours on end and not eat, not sleep, not drink anything, and just get locked in and be, like an 8-hour day would go by.
I know what you mean when you say that. And I was a young man doing the same thing. And I look back on that, I think it was a form of meditation.
Yeah, it had to be.
I mean, think when they talk about meditation, one of the goals, the way I understand it, is that you're attempting to shut off the inner dialogue, right? We all have a voice in our head that's speaking to us. It's just not talk for 8 seconds, and something in there will say something. Where's my girlfriend? Should we have Mexican food tonight? Whatever. Or usually it's saying something negative, like you suck, or you're not good enough, or yesterday, why did you do that yesterday? But there's always a dialogue. And meditation is the practice of finding silence where the dialogue shuts the fuck up for a second.
Right.
And I do meditate. I have meditated. I've aggressively meditated at certain times in my life. And I maybe have gotten, I don't know, there might have been a moment where a full minute went by where I was snapped out of it. And I was like, whoa, I think I just actually meditated. But then I thought back on my young years as an artist. And like you said, if I could be sitting in my bedroom at night drawing a picture, I might, that silence of the talker in my brain might shut up for 5 hours.
Yeah.
So I really think that in some way it is a form of meditation. And I think as a young man with all the anxiety of being a teenage boy and whatever, my house, there was divorce happening. And, I was under stress and I was, experimenting with drugs. There's anxiety. I think it was the one thing that kind of calmed me down. It was a peaceful thing to do, that I could just silence the world for a few hours. It was a coping mechanism for me.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely think I definitely feel that for sure. I think there was like always a lot of commotion going on in my household. So yeah, it was like a form to kind of like, or something I could use to kind of block things out at certain points. And maybe that's part of the reason why I was into it. I don't know. But I do know that like it was just super easy. I also play guitar too. So it's like I would sit.
That'll do it too, playing music.
Yeah. So sitting with a guitar like in my lap and I'd be drawing. And then it's like, all right.
Go back to the guitar.
Go back to just hop back and forth.
That's cool.
And I could do that all day. That's like the most content I've ever been in my like childhood or like, upbringing. That's what I remember. It's like
those
I'm just
moments.
Sitting, with the guitar, or I'm drawing, and I'm just like either learning tabs, because I didn't know much, or drawing and just constantly like trying to watch somebody else or just like trying to figure something out and make it look as real as possible. You know, that's
Very
what I
cool.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I'm as you're saying that, I'm thinking back. Those are some of my most fond memories too. Is just alone in my room, just with my little what were they called? Cassette tapes playing.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh,
drawing.
always music. There's always music.
There's always got to be some music going on. Well, that's cool. So the fire's lit. You're getting a little love from people. That always helps. You know, when you're young, everyone's looking for something to get patted on the back for.
Yeah.
And some of my friends were incredible athletes. I wasn't bad, but that wasn't my path. No one was high-fiving me for my baseball performance. Yeah. But when I drew something,
something happened.
Aunt Jeannie or Uncle Bobby or somebody would always be like, dude, you're fucking rad. That's fucking and then I just soaked that up. I'm like, really? I'll just do more of that then, because that is
affirmations, kind of
positive affirmations. Exactly. So that's happening. And then obviously I'm getting the picture here. You're developing. But you mentioned earlier, because I kind of want to touch on this, is your upbringing with your father. Because one thing I see in high performing tattooers, and you'll always find this when you get to know them better, is work ethic. Because the thing is, man, art, music, a guy can rip on a guitar. I'm telling you right now, he's got 10,000 hours on that fucking guitar. That's why he rips.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody just picks him. Then maybe there's that savant, like, we don't know how he did it. He just picked it up and he played the best shit ever. But we're not talking about those 1 in a million fucking characters that pop into the universe once. We're talking about all those rippers out there, and all of them have those 10,000 hours, which you obviously probably do too. Many hours pumping through that. And you had mentioned your father, your Italian father.
My dad's not Italian.
Your mother's the Italian.
Yeah.
Your father's the Scottish dude.
Yeah. Well, he's like Scottish, like, I don't know, it's like kind of a mix of everything.
Right.
I think he's like part
but
Jewish.
He was more than where he's from. He was a plumber and a boxer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of
that's the big one, the boxer. That's what everybody knows him as.
But I'm just thinking of how that must have impacted you as far as work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the man, but if you work as a plumber, I know what plumbers do for a living. I grew up in a contracting house. Those are hardworking dudes. Yeah, yeah. And I also kind of know what I want you to tell people your dad's professional career. To get to that level, he's a hard worker.
He's a man's man, dude. That's the base.
And he ain't afraid of hard work. He put in the time, and you must have adopted a lot of that.
Oh, 100%. My dad, he used to have articles that were written about him in the paper, and he cut them out and framed them. And it was like, there's this one I always remember. It said, plumber by day, boxer by night type thing. You know what I mean? Kind of like a duality thing going on. But he always used to tell me, he's like, man, I used to go, he said, I would run from my house, run to work with a toolbox. And he said, I would work and I would run to the gym. And he said, then I train, then I run home. Like
with his toolbox in his hand.
With the toolbox, the whole time.
That's cool, dude.
So you said I'd do that.
That's Rocky Balboa type shit, dude. You know, when he's in the cooler punching the fucking slabs of meat. You know, that's cool.
Just with the toolbox, you know.
Yeah, he didn't. His wasn't the meat. It was running. The plumber running through the streets. People probably thought he was crazy. He's like, I'm not fucking crazy. I'm working out.
Yeah. Well, he just had like so my grandfather, his dad was also a fighter. So it's like kind of. It's like a generational thing almost.
Wow.
Although it did kind of cut off with us. But, you know, it's not like we definitely had our fair share of fighting in our house, though. So, you know. But, yeah, I think the
also,
work ethic,
before we move forward, though, tell everybody your dad's professional career. It's pretty impressive.
Like the boxing?
Yeah.
Okay, so my dad fought Andrew Maynard and he fought Tommy Hearns. Hitman Hearns. He was like one of the big ones back in the day. 91. If you look it up on YouTube, Kemper Morton versus Tommy Hearns. There's a ton of clips. If you just type in Kemper Morton, you'll see like a ton of them. And that was the big one. I think he fought him in Vegas somewhere. And it was like, you could tell it was like an old TV, like ESPN thing, because it had like the Budweiser, like the old school Budweiser sign. Right, and there's like these old like Honda Civic commercials, like, you know.
Right. You could tell the era from the commercials.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was cool.
That's top of the food chain stuff. I mean, obviously he wasn't the greatest fighter in the world, but he got up into the big boys.
Yeah,
there.
he definitely
Did he make money at all, or
he actually that fight. Even though he did lose that fight, but because just doing that fight alone, he ended up buying a house after that with the winnings
With
from that
the
fight.
winnings from that
and that was
fight.
the house I was like not born in, but like when I was like 1 to like 3, I think, like that. He bought that house, and my mom and dad like have kept that house up until like last year. But that's not the house I technically grew up in. But
Still, dude,
it was
what
cool though. Yeah.
He made some money. He was able to buy a
Made some
family
money.
home with it.
Yeah.
And then what happened with his career? Did it just stop, or did he decide that's enough, or
Well, I think
his boxing career?
yeah, the boxing career, that's something like I don't know exactly what happened, but from what I gathered from all the stories that I've heard and everything, it just seems like, I mean, you probably know the boxing industry is like, it's pretty rigged. You know what I mean? And there's a lot
I've
of
heard that.
Yeah. It's not like like the most fair place to be, I put it that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like he got in there, and I think there was a certain point where it was just like, man, like I can either keep pushing, or like this is, what are my options there? I think he came to a crossroads at some point. And I think it was either like boxing, or like maybe I should do the plumbing route. Like this is like what's going to take care of my
Stable,
family.
and
Yeah. And I think he always told me growing up, he's like, learn a trade. You need to, you need to know a trade, because you can always fall back. People are always going to need plumbers. People are always going to need electricians, like all those things.
That's becoming that kind of died through like the late 90s, 2000s. You didn't hear many people say that. And it's funny how that's being shouted again, because I mean, I know I own 3 physical brick and mortar businesses. I own my home.
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ, dude, like I think a good plumber today could do well.
Oh,
because it's
like-
difficult to find these people
Yeah.
nowadays. And when you do find them, they seem to be like just learned it a
Flaky.
year ago, or an
Yeah.
old fashioned like dude who's been doing it his whole life, who doesn't fuck around and gets the job done.
yeah. My
Rare.
dad. That's my dad.
That's rare. Like
That's-
I tell these young people all the time, like, they're like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. I'm like, I tell them the same. If you're really that confused, man, just learn a solid trade. There are certain things that the AI can't do, as far as I know. The robots aren't coming to my house and fixing my sprinkler systems. They're not repairing the hole in my roof yet. So until then, humans still got to do this shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough one too. Cause like, I mean, because they're becoming so scarce, like that's only driving the price of like what things are costing. So these businesses, like if they're trying to get off the ground, like it may not be the prettiest thing in the world, but you can make a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if that's what somebody's after, and like that would help a shit ton of people too. So the value's high.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's unfortunate though, it's kind of like driving down, but I guess that kind of happens with time. It comes and goes.
But there's opportunity out there. There's just a
Oh,
lot
ton
of
of
young
it.
people who,
Ton of it. Yeah.
I was one of these kids. Like, I didn't want to go to college. I don't.
Same, yeah.
I don't want to study things I'm not interested in. And because of that, I ended up in the military, actually, because that's what a lot of those kids do. Like, I don't know what to do. I'll join the military. And then I already was an artist. And then when I got out, I ended up in tattooing, which is a trade. It's not the most necessary trade, though. It's not like a barber. However, the industry has just flourished. And so I got lucky, basically.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think, honestly, like, I'm like, damn, dude, like, you can make money doing this. And coming from hard labor, like, I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I also did, I don't know if I told you, but I did sales for like 3 years. So I went from selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door.
The old classic.
Yeah, the classic. Then I was doing door to door, call it like a storm chaser. We were doing like following hailstorms and knocking on doors. Also, I was canvassing neighborhoods and shit. I did that for the longest.
Dude, I like that because I those people come to my door and and my wife gets pissed because I always engage because she's like, why are you out there fucking talking to the pest control guy? We already have a pest control guy, but it's always some young, fired up, hustling sales guy.
I love it. I love it.
Honestly, I'm not even going to buy his pest control, but I just like to see his stick. I'm like, so I push him a little. Oh yeah? What if this happens, kid? And I like to see how they respond. Because really what you're witnessing a fucking craft.
Oh yeah.
That is the gnarliest. I could never do it, but you've done it. But going door to door, and I know what happens at 90% of those doors. Get the fuck off my lawn, you little piece of shit. Slamming doors. Fuck you.
Dude.
Like, and just to take
stories.
that verbal abuse, shake it off, go to the next door.
Yeah, dude.
That shows some special character.
Dude, you have to, I think I contribute that to like probably some of the best moments of my life because it's kind of shaped me into like being more confident in certain areas. Like, I don't think I would have been like outspoken as I am today if it wasn't for forcing myself to go and knock on people's doors. And I'm not going to lie to you, like every single time I go to walk up, just walking up the sidewalk, the nerves you feel is just
You're like PTSD.
You're like, dude, you're like shaking. It's like knocking on, and then you just got to, that's why you have to learn to script though. You have to like, and it's not like you're being creative every time. It was just like, okay, you're nervous, you know what to say. And it's just smile and just try to project that energy. And most of the time people didn't know what the hell was going on. And like, if you have the good energy, they're just like, yeah, do it. You know what I mean?
I like
they
you.
didn't care.
What are you selling?
Just do whatever you're doing, you know? And you
I
can
think
get
that's
away with
amazing.
it.
Dude, life is sales. I mean,
It is.
Unless you're just independently wealthy and you don't need nothing from no one anymore, good for you. The rest of us that have to go out there and earn a living, you're
Yeah.
constantly selling yourself.
You have to.
If you're the boss, you're selling yourself to the people that work for you.
Yeah.
You know, you're selling yourself to your neighbors so everyone can get along. Life is showing people that positive energy, making friends, getting people to like you. So to have that, I think, honestly, that's a perfect job for a young guy growing up. Is just forced to do that for a year or two because that they're going to learn a skill.
Best thing.
You're saying it right now. It's one of the best skills you've ever learned. And
Best
the second part to that is developing the ability to basically deal with people telling you negativity and be able to shake that
Being
off.
shut down constantly. Like the one thing, like, okay, so like you're going in, you know, you handle that rejection. But it's like I said, that walking up to the door, sometimes it's like when I'm designing something, I'm like, oh man, they're not gonna like, you know. It's like, and you start, and it trails into the, they're not really gonna like this either, and it's like you're literally talking yourself out of what you're trying to do. So it becomes like you're kind of working backwards in a way. But if you can kind of like learn how to work with that and like be like, oh, it's cool. Like, well, I'm just going to work with the client more than I am trying to think about what I'm doing. I think that's where I have the most fun coming up with designs, is that I'm literally just talking to the person. I'm like, oh, and I can read them and not have to worry about how I feel. You know what I mean? But I can also put my thing on it too. So it's like, I always call it a blender. So I was like, we're putting all this shit into the blender. You know what I mean? And like, we're just going to mix it up, and then whatever comes out is going to be like what we both like, you know?
That's cool, man. It's cool that your time doing that and how it serves you today.
Yeah.
No predicament we find ourselves in most of the time. There's acute moments. I have to always do caveats on the show because someone will write me later and be like, really, bro? When I got in the car crash and lost my right leg, that's not a fucking problem. I'm like, acute moments aside, those little things like being a sales guy and being told to fuck off every day. Later in life, you look back, you're like, oh, that was perfect.
Yeah.
That helps me today.
Oh yeah.
And I think everyone's got stories like that where they were in a phase of their life where they thought it was just for nothing. But it takes years later to realize, oh no, that was necessary. That drove me over here. You know, I did get divorced. But if I didn't meet that girl and have that divorce, I wouldn't be who I am to have met this new woman.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like there's nothing bad happening, again, aside from acute, horrible cancer, things like that, or dying in a plane crash. But all these little punches and beat ups we take in life, they're all just shaping you and giving you new
100%.
tools, you know?
I think the one thing that I say consistently, especially my apprentices that I have right now, is whenever like like when you get a cancellation or somebody doesn't show up or something, and I feel like there's a notion of like a lot of people get really butthurt about that. And I'm like, dude, listen, I was like, you'll never see me get upset about something like that. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to make my stuff more valuable today. That just gave me a huge gap where I can grow today now. Like now, instead of looking at it and be like, oh man, I can just kick a can down the road. Or I can just be like, hey, dude, I need to build this and work on this so I can get better. So the next thing I'm doing is going to be even better than what I was planning on before. So it's like, it's constantly just going uphill. And I'm just constantly moving forward.
So true. Yeah, no, I obviously have a lot of tattooers I've worked with over the years. It's the same thing. I'm like, dude, you got to look at it like this. You work these days a week. A work day is a work day. Some days it's tattooing. And if it ain't going to be tattooing, then it's drawing. And if it ain't going to be drawing, then it's finishing painting. And if it ain't finishing painting, then it's curating your Instagram. If it ain't that, then it's writing some emails to some clients you haven't gotten back. You can't sit here and tell me just because your client canceled, there's nothing to do, dude. In fact, all I see is opportunity. Great.
Nothing but, yeah.
Yeah, that's, I mean, when you're really young and you can't pay your rent, it can be a little bit of a bummer. But still,
Yeah,
don't
no.
waste that day. Don't waste that day. But let me
Yeah.
back this train up a little
Let's
bit.
do
So
it.
we've heard about the art, your youth, your father's influence in your life, all these things. When does tattoo step onto the scene?
Okay, so yeah, so after like kind of my drawing, and this is after the sales. I've done probably like, man, I've done every job you can think of, and the sales was just a portion that I like recognize more. That's helping me now, but like from like doing construction to doing like like remodeling homes and all that stuff to like working in restaurants to like literally I was a meter reader at one point, like like you name it. But like there was a point to where I was like. I was doing sales and went back to construction for like a hot second. And then I was just like to a point where I was like, man, like there's gotta be like, I was constantly drawing all the way through everything. And I'm like, dude, there's gotta be something that'll like kind of let me do all of this. Like I love the sales part. I love being able to talk to people because you kind of like create a different side of yourself and it's like felt good, you know? But also it's like, I want to involve like, you know, like drawing and like doing all of this side, the artistic side too. And tattooing was just like this thing that was emerging at like kind of like around 2010 area, or not 2010. It was probably like around 2014 ish, something like that. And I just remember seeing the first person I saw, which is funny, is Carlos Torres. I saw a magazine cover with him on. I was like, dude, you can do this as a tattoo? Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So that was like the one thing I was like, dude, I got to figure out how to do this. So I was just constantly searching for a way in. So I was like, you know, then there was like academies even like popping up, like Tattoo Academy. And I'm like, you know, I was like, I don't know how legit this is, but you know, like I'm just looking for a way in. This dude's like $5,000 to try to get in this. And like, I'm like, damn, that's a lot. You know, like at the time I'm like, man, I'm broke. Like I get $5,000 for that. So I'm like, all right, maybe I should just go and just hop around to some shops and figure out what I got to do. Cause I didn't know. I didn't really have a collection of any like art or anything. I just had a bunch of random sketches all over the place, and I would do them consistently, but I had a problem of never finishing something. So it's like I can't just show somebody something half done, you know?
Yes and no. I mean, honestly, when I look at people that want to become tattooers and they show me their work, I like seeing their sketchy or messy sketches as opposed to their finished work, because the finished work I find can be, yeah, it's almost like you're seeing they've had so many hours to polish that thing.
Yeah.
But when you see those sketches, you're seeing the true fingerprint
Yeah.
and that raw core. I can look at someone's sketches and usually I, in my mind, and be like, I can see the talent or the lack of talent. So I almost tell them, because they'll bring me these, here are all my paintings, finished and done. And I'm in my mind, I'm like, I don't know if you like copied it off your iPad or if you know, I don't know how. Let me see how you built that.
I always loved, even when I was looking at comic books, like I've loved the rough, just dirty, just like Greg Capullo, like that dude. Watching all of his like comics, how he'd like build all the sketchy and gritty, like crazy, like
It almost
textures.
looks like scribbled, but then it
Dude.
slowly turns into this thing.
I love just that stage, and then once it gets inked, I'm like, it kind of loses something. It kind of loses something that I'm always like, I don't know, the organic like flow of everything, and then it gets so clean. It's like, I like the flowy part a little bit better. But I mean, even the ink side is really cool too. It's.
But
not my
I hear
favorite.
what you were saying though. In your mind, as a person who doesn't understand the tattoo industry, you're thinking they don't want to see this sketchy shit.
Right,
They want
right.
to see a beautiful piece of art I've created, because that's what the youngsters do when they come into me too.
Yeah.
They try to show me the best piece of art they've ever done, and I immediately just throw it to the side. I'm like, don't care. Let me see
Yeah.
your sketchbook.
Yeah.
And they're just like, fuck, I thought you wanted to see that. I'm like, no, I don't want to see that. I
Yeah.
mean, it was cool. Thank you. But, you know, so you were thinking, I don't have enough to show these dudes.
Yeah. It's
And
the
then so
opposite, yeah.
you're beating on doors. How does it end up? What door
Tattooing.
opens?
So I basically, the way I started, it was literally, I found like it was like a kind of like a tattoo academy thing at the time, but it was more like, hey, just come and draw. And like, you know, we're going to teach you how to like get into tattooing, I guess, is from what I can remember. And I used to hang out with this dude and his wife, and they would teach us, just like we'd have like little drawing things every Wednesday. And I was like doing construction. So I'd go there at like 7:00 at night every Wednesday. And I think a couple of weeks went by, and he owned a shop. It was called Defining Skin. So he was getting ready to open up a second location, and he had another location, and he was just starting like this academy thing at the time. And so I was hanging out with them, and a couple weeks go by, then the one shop opens up, and long story short, he ended up getting rid of the academy thing because it was just like, I think you saw like a means to an end there. And he was opening up the second shop, and then they asked me, they're like, hey, do you want to like apprentice and just do a traditional apprenticeship pretty much? So I was like, yeah. And then that's basically like how I got my way in. It was kind of like, I don't consider it to be like the most like traditional way that I've heard like most stories, like where it's just like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just started at the shop, and then it was like, you know, I started working on this and setting up and doing stuff, you know. His shop was like being built, so like I was like helping him build the shop like itself. Like it was like rough.
This guy wants to be a tattooer and he knows construction. Yeah. I'm building a shop. Exactly. Hey, you want to work with me?
Yeah.
What your first day of this apprenticeship? I need you to sheetrock this room, mud it out, and
well, I put a sink in actually. Yeah, I put a sink in the first one. I do remember that. That was funny. But like I was like, you know what? At least I was using like the construction to help me get into tattooing in like more ways than one. So hey, it worked out. Like, you know,
oh, dude, that is a traditional apprenticeship in a certain way, because oftentimes all these owners are just like, they need something. This guy needed construction. You could help him out with it.
Yeah.
You know, other people, they might need you to come. Maybe they're painting their house, or maybe they need somebody to do this task that they're sick of doing. And that's the payment from the apprentice to the teacher is like, look, you're going to help me. You're going to make my life better somehow.
Yeah.
And if you can, I'll bring you into this private little community of tattoo artists, you know? So it's a fair trade as long as everyone's being honest about it.
I think that was like probably the best way I could have got in. And honestly, it just like stars were aligned type thing. I remember that being like such an opportunity. I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe I just got into this thing.
You're lucky, dude. Yeah. One of my guys would, part of the helping him out was to go help him buy his heroin, you know?
Oh.
Yeah. So I'd rather sheetrock the room instead of being like pulling up in some sketchy neighborhood in fucking Portland. He puts a 9mm in my lap and he's like, look, I'm going into this house. If you hear some shit go down, come in firing. And I'm like, how the fuck did I end up here? But you can't look at him and say, I ain't doing it. I'm like, okay. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going in there. Luckily, I never had to go in there.
Yeah, good luck.
But I mean, this is 30 years ago. Point being is, he did that, but it can be worse for sure.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I've never heard a story like that, but that's
I've got
crazy.
A bunch of them, dude. But again, this is 30 years ago. It was so different, dude.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I couldn't find anybody to teach me that wasn't crazy as fuck, basically. And I knew it, but I was like, I wanted in so bad. That I was
do anything,
willing almost to do anything. I mean, there were a couple things. Luckily, I was told I might have to do things, and I would just pretend I was cool. But in my mind, I was like, if it comes down to it, I'm not fucking doing that.
Yeah.
But I was definitely tested. You know, they were looking you. They're gangsters, basically. They're looking you in the eye, seeing if you're getting nervous, and it's like, you know, I'm just a middle class, fucking regular guy, just trying to size up with these people. Like, I look on it fondly now. I mean,
dude, that is a really cool. I've always thought like the history of tattooing was really cool. And I don't know, maybe it's not like the best thing, but like the whole like gang vibe. Like, I mean, I don't want to glorify it too much, but you know what I'm saying. But like it does have an interesting like feel to it. It's kind of gritty.
It's colorful, and it's part of our history, like it or not. And I actually feel grateful because basically I tell people I got the full ride, meaning I got in when it was still pretty crusty and dirty and pretty scary. Basically. Right. It was scary, you know, to go into shops you were fucking nervous. These dudes were eyeballing you like a lot of them just got out of prison. And you didn't know if they were going to beat you up and just take your shit,
right?
Or make you do something nasty, or maybe actually help you. It was always like, what's going to happen? You know, it was scary, and you really had to find some courage to even fuck around in those environments. I'm surprised I even did it because I wasn't the toughest kid growing up. You know, I just wanted tattooing so bad that I was like, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to try.
Deal with it,
But I got that all the way to the Renaissance period, right? When these guys start falling away, and the reason they're falling away
when do you think the Renaissance period started?
Well, it's like, to me, like the late 90s and early 2000s, all these talented tattooers started popping onto the scene. And these aren't gangsters. These aren't, you know, gang members or penitentiary dudes. These are young, hyper talented artists that some of them are coming out of art school now. and they're going to art classes. And then that's when you start seeing tattooing just go through
Yeah.
the roof, So I was part of the beginning of that. I rode with those people. And then where we are today, I don't have words for it, but
Way different.
way different and still
Yeah.
growing. So I'm happy that I got the ride from the whatever we're going to
that's
call
cool.
those dirty years all the way to this hyper professional, high performing thing
Yeah.
we're doing now. It is cool. Yeah.
That's
At the
cool.
time I was bitter a little bit. I was kind
Oh,
of
I bet.
pissed that
Yeah.
the people were being so nasty, but also they had their reasons and
I mean, dude, that's just like we were talking about earlier. You know what I mean? Like it kind of shapes you in that way. Like, like now I feel like stuff like that kind of builds the appreciation more. It's like, that's what makes you grateful for what you got now, Even though-
100%. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, man, I have way more maybe deeper gratitude than others that didn't get put in those situations.
Yeah.
But to be fair, Frankie Fumano, if you ever hear this show, I'll name the name. He was my third teacher, and he learned from Henry Goldfield. So he was legit. Like he knew how to tattoo, and he pushed in ways that were seemingly kind of unnecessary. But in his defense, and he even told me his thought was he saw a middle class suburban kid who was the world of tattooing was gonna eat me alive.
Yeah.
And he thought he didn't know. I don't think he understood that era of tattooing was going away.
Yeah.
So he thought, I'm going to toughen this kid up because if
Yeah.
he's going to be a tattooer, he's going to have to learn to fight. He's going to have to learn to fucking fire a gun or carry a knife, or he's got to be ready to, because he had been in that world, and that's all. That's what tattooing was to him. So he roughed me around a bit, but I think it was in almost a loving way, like to try to teach.
Yeah.
He even told me the day he fired me, he ended up firing me because I wouldn't do a thing he wanted me to do, and it was probably the right time.
Yeah.
But he basically said, good luck,
Yeah.
kid. This tattoo industry is going to eat you alive.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, maybe he's right, and
Right.
but then it didn't. That's right when tattooing started to clean up,
Yeah.
and it was really wanting people like me. So no offense, Frank, you were wrong, but I understand what you were trying to do.
Yeah.
So thank you. But I don't know. I went on a bit of a tangent
That's
there.
all right.
But yeah, that's my story. And so your story, yeah, that's great. So you found your way in one way or the other. Now
Right.
you're learning to tattoo and you're grinding away. Let me get on to some bigger picture kind of stuff here.
Let's do
Like, what do you love most about tattooing as an art form?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of cool aspects of it. One thing I definitely get locked into a lot is like what's possible. I think that's the coolest thing because it's like every day I feel like somebody comes out with that different way to do something. And that's
true.
the coolest shit. Like, cause I'm like, damn, dude, like I just saw this dude, like, can't remember his name, but this morning I always like research different tattoo artists. I love looking at different stuff. So he came out, like, he just made this thing. He just puts these crazy teeth on things. Like, that's it. Like, just crazy teeth. And it's like in a goofy way too, but it's like more of like a traditional, or I'd say like a neo-traditional sort of way with like some random teeth on stuff. Like, and I'm like, I would have never have thought to do that. It's kind of cartoony, but I love it. Like, it's just different. And it's like, when they know how to do everything properly, it's just cool to see a really good, like, well done piece. I think that's the one thing I love. And then meeting people too at the same time. I think that's another big one.
Which is unique
Yeah.
to tattooing because there's just a lot of art forms where you don't engage with other humans, really. You're just
No.
somewhere alone creating something.
Yeah.
We get to do that dance with a participant.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
I agree with that point. That's my answer at this stage of my career. Is it was the people more than the work.
Yeah.
Just the friendships and the bonds and the community, and that's
Right.
been
Yeah.
the best part. But yeah, that's unique about tattooing.
You know what I love? I remember the first time I went to my first convention. It was in Tampa, and I remember just walking into a room because I'd only been tattooing for like a year and a half at that point. Never really seen like what the whole industry was like. So I only knew one shop at the time, and I'd never been into other shops like that. Like, that was like my first shop I ever knew and started at. So I walked into this convention and it was like, it's packed full of tattoo artists. And I just remember feeling like this crazy, I was like, oh, this is like a brotherhood type thing. Like, it's like everybody's in the same thing. We all kind of like, in a way, look after each other if you're feeling it right. But it was just cool. I remember it being like the coolest show I've ever been to,
No, it is being a part of a unique community. I mean, we are a unique community. I mean, maybe it's changed now because so many people are tattooed, but for a long time, it was sort of a statement of the outliers. Like we were all saying to the world, we're not part of that world. We're going to be over here doing our own thing, and it made it a brotherhood, and we all respected each other for it because we all knew, like, okay, you're definitely not a working at a bank taking advantage of low income housing or whatever. Yeah. And I don't want to make all their jobs negative, but even if it was a positive job, none of us are doing those corporate environment things, and we're all risking everything, because we're all young, and we should probably go to college and get some kind of stable career, learn an actual trade like plumbing. There's a lot of things you can do that are going to work out. You get into back, maybe not today, but back when you did, and definitely back when I did, you were really saying, I have no idea what's going to happen.
No idea.
I could end up broke as a joke in 20 years. I don't know. People told me that.
The funny thing is, my dad always, I remember him, when I first started tattooing, he'd ask me all the time, he's like, you making enough money? All the time. And then there was a certain point where I was starting to make good money, and he's like, you make enough money? I'm like, Dad, I'm doing fine. Don't worry.
That's every parent. As soon as the kid can prove to the parent they can pay their bills, the parent's like, cool.
Yeah.
You just don't want to have to support your kids. Yeah. That's the big fear. I told my parents I was going to be a tattooer. They didn't say it out loud, but I could tell in their eyes. They're like, great. We'll be supporting this dumbass the rest of his life.
Here we go.
Then I started making some money. It was the same thing. Then they were all proud, good job, son. You made the right choice.
Yeah. It's like, see what he did? Yeah. It's like, I got a part of that, I love that. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Like, this is a kind of one that, do you have, like, I call it like a North Star. Like, life moves fast and it's complicated and decisions have to be made rapidly. Do you have a philosophy or like
a moral compass?
What is your guiding light when you get in that fray and you're not quite sure what to do? You just fall back on a default mode of like, well, I know to do that and we'll see what happens.
Kind of like what's you got a situation, you think?
Or difficult people or difficult business relationship or a difficult client. I mean, I'll just say like mine, I've become relatively Buddhist over my years, and the Buddhists have an old saying that just says, do no harm.
Right.
So when I get confused and I'm being hit with too many questions simultaneously, or I'm not quite sure what to do, I fall back to that. I'm just like, well, as long as I'm not doing intentionally harming anyone or harming the emotions or any of these things, then I'm okay and I can keep moving forward. But if I feel like I'm doing something that I know consciously might hurt others or offend someone or make someone feel sad or unloved, that's my point where I stop and I just go, no. No matter if there's some money on the other side of it, if there's a better contract on the other side of it, some benefit to me on the other side of it, if I sense that it's going to offend or hurt someone unfairly, sometimes you do the right thing and it hurts somebody else on them. But unfairly, then that's I call it my North Star. I just stop.
So what I'm thinking of right now, it's kind of like what I've kind of battled with a lot in the past couple of years, which is kind of funny. You said that because like the whole reason like, with me trying to open up a shop, like my family's always been the one to like kind of help guide me through things in a way. They've always been like a step ahead. Like, cause before I even started tattooing, my nan and like family members are like, do something in art. Like you need to do something in art. Like that's what you got to do, And then it was like, that's kind of like pushed me into tattooing. But then now, so to answer your question, it's like to get into like business and doing stuff like that I'm doing now. Like I feel like I don't want to just be running after the money, you know what I mean? Because I know that's a means to an end, and like you're not going to be as fulfilled. So I have a certain thing like where if like that can also like it makes you a grimy person, if that's all you're going after. Like it makes you like unaware of like what's going on in the world. Like people are just gonna think that's all you're after. But it's like the whole point that as long as I'm providing value to somebody and I can see the value or believe in what I'm doing, I think that's my like kind of my purpose there. And I don't know if it's always pretty, but I like as long as I'm doing good for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think it's great. That's pretty much what I kind of said as well. Yeah, I think that's a good, I always say compass or guiding star because that's the thing is it's easy to, life's fast, man, especially nowadays. And sometimes you just got to fall back on just a basic core principle because you're not quite sure what to do in that moment. So you go back to that core. But I think you're right. Providing value. That's great, dude. And
That's why I live.
especially as a tattooer, like
Yeah. Well, this is all a gift, dude. Like, this is just, I'm like, I don't even know how we're still rolling, but we're doing it. So might as well
I
just
know.
keep doing it,
I think every year of my career, I'm like, this is probably the last year.
Yeah, dude.
It's probably going to go downhill next year for sure, and
Yeah.
it just keeps going. I'm like, oh, another year. Thank you, universe.
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
but on the value thing with tattoo art specifically, it's, gosh, it's so personal. Like I know, I think you get this, and I definitely know I've made it a point to teach this, is we are in an art form that deeply affects people, man. It's like, and to take
More than I ever thought.
yeah, even I get shocked sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll finish it. I did, just the other day I finished a tattoo, and I swear the person had tears in his eyes. And I was
Isn't
reminded
that's the
of
craziest
like,
thing.
oh my God, like, so bring that knowing like, this isn't just, some canvas I'm working on. And if I don't like it, I can just throw it in the trash.
Right.
Or splash tequila across it or burn my cigarette out on it, because you can with a canvas.
No.
It's a human that has to be not just giving your all that day, show up, ready to work, prepared, work good on your art, do as best you can on a technical level, but they should be cared for. Are you comfortable? Are you okay? They need to feel a positive, loving experience from their artist and providing value.
Some connection.
Yeah, just know I think this guy actually gives a shit about me. He's not just waiting for my $1,000 payment at the end of the session. He's gonna get his $1,000, but and that's important. I think that's huge.
That's a big one. I definitely think people get tattooed for a reason, and I think a lot of it is one of the main things. I think personally, just from what people I've tattooed, it's definitely a huge confidence thing. And it's like, I think some people, if they're like, feeling a certain way in their life, and then like, man, I just need that one little inch forward, and like maybe getting a tattoo might be painful, but it's like, I'm going to feel like better in my own skin,
For sure.
And that can affect all areas. I mean, just from like, even if like you get, if you're, like overweight and then you get fit, like you're going to feel like a different person altogether. And I think tattooing is like one way you could do that. Besides exercising,
100%. Like an example would be, me and my wife own a laser removal company as well. So we deal with a lot of people that have problems. And I can think of one particular woman who wanted to get a tattoo because she would feel more confident wearing a bathing suit. Maybe she didn't have the perfect supermodel body, but she didn't feel like the cutest girl at the pool, and maybe a really pretty tattoo. And instead she got a piece of shit, horrible tattoo. And the opposite now she won't wear a bathing suit. Like she went from self-conscious to not even wearing one because she's embarrassed. So now she's getting it lasered off. Point being, like what we leave in people's skin, you can put someone into a spiral of depression if you don't have your shit together, or you can lift somebody up to another level where they're like feeling a little, I got my first tattoo. I mean, I wasn't an insecure young man. I was a decent looking guy. Girls seemed to like me. But even then, I felt like I wanted to be cooler. Like, I don't know, I'm missing something. Got my first tattoo. My chest stuck out further. I felt more confident. I felt, all these emotions. And now I know they were silly young boy thoughts. But at that time, it lifted me up, and that was cool. So it is something we hold in our hands, and it should be held gently and with compassion and love. And I think that's a huge thread in the tag. It's I preach that a lot. I don't think it's as big a deal. Now, there's so many good people out there doing it that way now. I think I say that a lot because I came from an era when there was dudes flat.
Oh yeah.
I remember one of my bosses saying, "You see those people out in the waiting area?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "That's your enemy." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Fuck them. Get their fucking money and get them the fuck out the door." And I was just like, okay.
That's funny.
Because I'm not going to disagree with the dude, but I'm thinking in my mind, like, that's how you come. That's the energy you're bringing to these pieces of art you're doing.
Christ, that's
but
so bad,
this guy had been to prison, and he'd been to, there was reasons he felt that way. Who knows? But that's obviously gone. But there are still some people out there I think are too cavalier. Yeah. They're too concerned with what that picture is going to look like for their portfolio, and they're not even paying attention to the fact that the client really has asked several times to not have that color. and you're just like arguing with them. It's like, you got to listen. This is the other half of your canvas here.
Right.
Listen. And if you can't find a common ground, then just politely decline.
You just got to cut it off. Yeah, that's the thing.
Or intimidating the client. Like, you see those tattooers that they just kind of lean in that certain way, and you can see the person being like, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you're manipulating that person. You felt that they had a very soft energy.
Yeah.
So you're all being, this is how it's done. You don't want it that way. That way sucks. This way is cool. You want to be cool?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the 18-year-old boy is like, yeah, I want to be cool. Yeah. Sit the fuck down. And like, that ain't fair.
No, that's definitely a really like bully way to handle that for sure.
It's subtler than that. But I've watched guys do that in the most subtle way where I'm like, really,
hey, bro.
They just have a certain way they say it. I'm like, you're manipulating a younger person who you can do that to them.
Right.
Don't do that to them.
Yeah,
honestly, ask them what's going on.
You can't do that. Yeah, that's not good. But I mean, at the same, I think there is kind of a line where it's like, hey, dude, like, if you start going in this direction, or if you're gonna add this color, like, listen, bro, like, I'm just gonna tell you what's gonna happen. If you want to do it, it's up to you. It's your skin. I'll do it. You know what I mean? Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like,
that's true. No, there's absolutely a line. I mean, I've told thousands of people over the years, like, this is why and oftentimes it's not even that they can't do it. I'll say, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like you literally, there may be a tattooer out there that I see what you're saying, but I don't know how to do it. It's not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So go find that other tattooer that can do it, but I don't want to start something that I don't feel confident doing. Because if I'm not
with it,
I might fuck this thing up, Then there's other times where they just don't understand what we understand, and you have to educate.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to
on
do
a professional level
with politeness and be like, look, I'm telling you, man, the reason we don't do this is because we've seen these things happen. And if you come at it really educationally with respect, people listen. But that intimidation thing, but fuck that shit. But let me ask you this, because this has been on my mind. Yeah. And I'm an old, I guess I'm an old timer, 30 years, but I hate even saying it. But from my old timer days, obviously I grew up in an era of tattooing when, I should say, not the new school era. There was a lot of irresponsible tattooing happening, people experimenting with hyper saturated colors and things. But one thing that does get discussed in the tattoo circles still today is the criticism of color realism. And I know you've heard this. Like,
100%.
You got the guys who tattoo more traditionally. They got to have a black line, got to have black shading, and you got to have 3 colors, maybe 4. You know why? Because that shit's there in 30 years, boy. And then they go, I show them your page. They're like, this is all mud. That's just going to be a piece of shit in 20 years. Like, what the fuck is this guy? Fuck that shit. So how did I get New York all of a sudden there?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think
it happens around me. It happens a lot.
You're bringing out my inner Italian.
It happens a lot, dude. Trust me.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are a photorealism, color portrait-y guy.
Yeah.
And I love your work, by the way. I think there is, just to be clear before you respond, I think there is a line that can be crossed. I don't think you're crossing it. I've looked at your work. I think it's I think it's very responsible. I don't think you're doing anything that I've seen where I'm like, oh, that's just going to be a pile of shit in 10 years.
Yeah, no
you're
ballsy
not.
shit. Yeah.
But I want you to respond in that way. Like when you get that criticism or when people say that about that type of work, how do you feel about that?
Personally, I don't think anybody's ever said that directly to me. So, but I mean, if they did, like, I guess, the way I like to handle things, I mean, it's not like I'm just like throwing a bunch of stuff just like irresponsibly like together. Like I'm going in with the thought process of like, okay, how is this going to hold up? Mm-hmm. And like even during the process, like sometimes, like, I mean, everybody's got their day. It's like, yeah, that's not going to hold very well. But I mean, I'm like, yo, come back. Let me fix this up. Let's see how it heals. And then let me make sure that's like all the way set. Because I don't want to leave them with something that's going to be, like fading away in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? So I definitely, I think, like I do try to hide as many lines as possible in there. And a lot of times I'll line with color too. So like, I mean, just to create like a really nice hard edge. So things kind of, even if they start to spread, they kind of hold together really tight.
Creates a border.
Yeah. Even if it's just like a line of color or if it's like a line of like gray or like a darker tone normally. And I also work a lot with like round shaders. Like I like to really saturate that shit in there. It takes a little bit longer, but it overall, like the finished product, it's just so tight and it can look so clean. It's unbeatable.
How do you deal with darker skin tones? Because with your work, definitely your work specifically shines on them white skin. Like that's your
for like color. Yeah, for sure.
Do you back out of some of those?
Yeah.
You change your game plan when you're dealing with like
Little
somebody
bit.
with olive tones or dark olive or black or whatever.
Yeah. So I think definitely it can adjust my contrast levels on everything. Like when I'm dealing with darker skin tones, I'm trying to bring the contrast level like way up. Like compared to like I might bust out like 5 or 6 colors for like a lighter skin tone. But like if I'm in a darker skin tone, I'm gonna keep it like pretty like 3 or 4 like super solid tones and just try to work them into each other.
Right.
So nothing gets lost and just kind of like muddied up over time.
Right.
And just a really strong base is like
smart. That's what I thought you'd say, but it definitely is. It has to be thought about. That's one thing about the traditional approach is it goes on anybody kind of.
Yeah, it's pretty universal.
It's a universal approach, right?
Yeah,
It'll go almost on anybody. But your stuff there, you do have to adjust based on skin tone.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly. I think the way I like to do color, and it might be a little bit more of an excessive approach, but I'll literally bust out my caps. I mix each tone every day. Like I pretty much use like 6 to 12 colors. And every single tone gets pre-mixed, and I'll try to find like as close as I can to the biggest fields of tone that I need or color that I'm using, and just making sure those big fields are consistent. And then if there's any like little small variations, I'll bust out just like a basic like painter's palette almost and just kind of tap away to whatever I need and pre-mix in the tube and just kind of get those tones in.
Right.
But yeah, darker skin tones, it's pretty much like it's this color.
A lot more black and a lot empty skin to create the heavy contrast.
Yeah.
Right. Your brightest color, technically, obviously, you can push white into people. But I always felt like your brightest color is the person's skin.
Oh, 100%.
Right? And it's still okay to push in those whites and knowing that I always tell people, look, make sure that piece looks good without the white and then add the white. Because if that white goes away in 5 years, you still got this skeleton beneath it that works.
Yeah, the foundation is still there.
There.
It's still built up. Everything holds together. That's more important than anything. And I think from some realism pieces that I've seen out there, I think some people kind of get lost in that. Like it's like, this person might be a great like graphite artist, but like that doesn't necessarily mean like they're going to be a great like tattooer. You know what I mean? Like, but I think there's just a gap that or like a bridge they're kind of missing. You know what I mean? To kind of like know like, oh yeah, like, you know, they could be great tattooers also. It's just there's something like they're too locked into possibly. I don't know. But there's something I feel like I've mainly learned like how to become a better artist through tattooing. And then it's like I've learned more graphite and then I've learned painting.
It all happens simultaneously.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I just wanted to challenge you with that question a little bit because it's out there. You know, there's still people who think that what you do shouldn't be happening and vice versa. And by the way, I love your work again, and I'm a big fan of the people that can do that stuff right. I think it's fucking amazing. And it's not my wheelhouse. I mean, I guess my stuff sometimes might touch in that area a little bit. Yeah. My stuff's a little more like strong black outline, black shading.
Which I love too. Like that stuff is like just all of it. I try to like, you know, take in as much as I can, but that stuff you can definitely tell when somebody's like super into their craft or at least their section of the craft. You know what I mean?
Honestly, a lot of me would have gone more your direction, aside from the fact that I made a mission statement 20 something years ago to do bodysuits. And when I started doing this large format, what I learned after a while is, dude, I have to speed up. Like I you know, to sit there in a you know, a size of a softball and spend 7 hours is cool if you're doing a softball size tattoo. But when someone says they want you to cover their neck to their ankle, it becomes almost, I don't want to say impossible, but kind of impossible because you know, I'm still not the fastest. You know, I work with Hernan Coretta next door to this room right now. The man's over there cranking out bodysuits like weekly, I feel like, you know, traditional Japanese guy, right? And he can he'll do a sleeve in under 20 hours. Beautiful. But it's traditional Japanese. Big, strong outline, solid black shaded background, 3 colors, It's gorgeous. It's a dragon. It's dope.
Yeah.
And what I learned over the years is the Japanese really were working on a lot of things. And one of them was efficiency, because they wanted to figure out how to cover these large areas of the body, still look pretty. So they didn't overcomplicate. They kept things simple. So I found something in between you and Hernan where, you know, and even then, you know, my back piece, my back to ass to thighs is going to take me 70 hours.
Right.
It'll take Hernan 40 or 30 maybe,
Crazy.
you know. They're two different looks though. I mean, obviously, but the idea of doing like what you do from back, butt cheeks, backs of thighs to ankle, I just was like, I don't know if anyone can afford it. Like
Dude,
it's so
it's a whole different market, bro.
Yeah, it is. Like
that's crazy.
Yeah, because you see it in your work. Like you don't. No offense, but you're not seeing the back pieces. You're seeing the big pieces, but not like full fronts. And you know, and there's, I guess, what I'm saying is there is a limitation to coverage with that style of work. I think unless the person's got unlimited money and unlimited time, and they're out there.
Yeah, which is not as common as, you know, most people would think. But and that is, I think that is a struggle, because it's like, you know, most people look at what I do and they're like, yeah, that looks expensive. But also it looks like it takes time. You know what I mean? That's probably why they're probably like, oh, it takes time. It must be expensive, right? They're not wrong, but it's the point of like, dude, like, I don't think people really understand like how much time I can spend on an area, and like it's not a lot. You know what I mean?
No, to get that look, I mean, let's back to the original. It's photorealism. To make something look like a real object, a real flower that you can almost grab with your hands.
The petal,
that takes time. It takes time.
Oh,
because you got to get every little minute drop of rain has to be dripping off of it with a little gleam on the tip. And, you know, all that has to happen or it isn't photorealism.
Right.
And that's time. I mean, that happens in painting. I mean, you do a fucking painting, it's going to, a photorealistic.
10 times longer.
10 times longer than somebody who's a loosey-goosey and moving paint around.
Right.
So, and again, respect on both. I just thought it's an interesting subject to discuss, is the ability for guys in your genre to get into large format. It's almost like you might not ever be the guy with 20 bodysuits.
No, probably not. And that's not necessarily something I've ever really like. I mean, I'm like, I look at something like that, and I think about like, I'm like, dude, that's going to take a long time. Like, because coming from my perspective, I'm thinking like how long an arm would take me. So like, dude, I'll see you in the next 10 years, bro. Like we can figure something out as we go.
Right.
But, or unless you got a couple artists on one. I think that I've seen some people do that.
With
and
two guys of the same genre.
Two are like, you know, now they got the guys that are doing the anesthesia where they knock them out. Have you seen those guys?
I just heard it. Well, I saw it once, but I think there was a big meme going around just yesterday or the day before. Somebody just got two artists to rip a back piece.
It's insane.
And
that's nuts.
He was under anesthesia. And I saw Derb Morrison did a post today where he's holding up a sign and he was just creating, you know, like conversation. He said, how do you feel? The sign says, how do you feel about people going under or do you feel like people going under anesthesia are earning their tattoos?
Yeah.
Please respond or make a comment. I meant to comment. I was in a rush this morning about what I would have said. And Derb, if you're listening, he's supposed to come on the show soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's in Columbus. Yeah. I guest spotted over there.
I was going to say,
cool guy.
Yeah, love Derb. I've done Hell City a few times. He's a sweetheart. But my response to that was, I don't give a shit what other people do. It's like, I really don't. If you could ask me what I would do, I would not go under anesthesia for a tattoo. I would not tattoo someone under anesthesia. But if somebody, other tattooer, and to me, it's just like to each their own. It's that simple to me in life.
Yeah.
If you're not fucking up my stuff, you're not pissing on my lawn, you're not trying to bang my wife.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with you. You know,
it's pretty good morals to live by.
Man,
you know?
Get under anesthesia. I do believe you lost something in that, because after being a guy who's heavily tattooed, I now can reflect back and realize there is some character that I got from that, and some honor, and it serves me, but doesn't mean it's going to serve somebody else.
No,
each their own.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. It's like, I don't know if I mean, it's not like I'm against it. I mean, it's cool that it's happening, but I'm like, dude, like the price, you got to have money for that. Like,
well, that's the other part.
That's I'm like, who's like the only people? I mean, you want to spend $50 to $100K like in a day. I mean, you got to have a little bit of money. Yeah. You know, other than that, like being a tattoo artist, I feel like I would feel rushed, even though it's just 1 day or 2 days or whatever the time frame they're doing that is. And I think, I don't know, I would like to have like that relationship with somebody. You know?
That's a good point. You're also taking out the thing we mentioned earlier, which is one of the coolest parts about a good tattoo relationship is you and your client, you're developing this friendship. You've got these memories. It's almost like two people that have gone to war together or something. Like you both went through this tough thing because it is tough on the tattooer. It's tough on the client, but you both have this like kind of like bond now because we both went through the fire together. And when this guy wakes up, he's got no bond. The tattooer has no bond. It's just a piece of meat basically. Yeah. And he wakes up, pays them their money, gets on his jet and flies home, you know, which again, to each their own. Yeah, but it is a conversation that seems to be firing up lately, and everybody wants to have strong opinions about it.
Everybody's super. I mean, because ideally, like, you know, like everybody wants to kind of avoid pain. I feel like that's like kind of an undertone of like nowadays. Everybody's trying to avoid the hard thing. You know what I mean? They want the easy thing.
Get down to you're right.
Yeah.
And that's the result of us having some pretty cush lives over here in the West, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody, and everything, there's something does your finger hurt? Eat this pill. You'll feel better. Like no one can just be comfortable being uncomfortable as much as they used to. You know, life for thousands of years was straight up uncomfortable. Every day hurt. Your back hurt, your head hurt, your hands hurt. There was no fucking pill. There was no Vicodin. No one was giving you any opiates. You just learned to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And now we live in a culture where it's like they have the pharmaceutical companies and other people have a solution for any micro disturbance in your life. You know, everything's climate controlled. Your seats in your car are air conditioned. And not only that, there's massagers inside of them in case you might feel a slight discomfort in your butt cheeks. You know, which, hey, look, I have air conditioned seats. I'm not dissing that. But you're right. It has created a culture of like people don't really go to the pain as much as they used to. They're finding ways to get out of it.
Isn't that like, there's something, and definitely I learned this from my dad too. He's
the boxer, I'm sure.
And he's always like kind of had he's got gout too. So like, you know, he's always like limping around. He'd always like, when I go to the job with him, be like 4:30, 5 a.m. He's up, dude. He's, you know, man's man. He's up at, you know, early, going to work, you know, boots on, let's get out the door. And he's always limping out the door. Remember? And he'd be like, you know, pain is good. He's like, pain is good. He'd always say that every morning. That's awesome. I always thought about it. Like, I'm like, yeah, it is good. I mean, I never really understood it then, but now I'm like, dude, you got to go through something. If you want to enjoy anything, you got to go through something hard because else you're not going to enjoy it or appreciate it, you know?
100%, dude. Do you think chocolate cake would taste good if you ate it every day?
Oh, no.
You'd be puking it up after the sixth day.
So used to it, yeah.
Chocolate cake tastes good because you lived on chicken and broccoli for the last 3 weeks, and then you bite into it and you're like, oh damn, oh my God, that's a good cake. And you're right. You know, pain is part of life. Pain is perspective. Pain is the contrast between what gives us joy and what doesn't. But you're not going to feel high levels of joy without having gone through some shit, you know?
No, and you got to do it. And I think that's the important part about tattooing. Keep tattooing painful, you know? Like, it's like, dude, like, there's something about it just earning that thing. It just makes it like that much better, you know?
Yeah, dude. 100%.
I love that.
You know what? That's how we're closing today. That's how we're closing today. That is our closer. Yeah. That is so true. Like when I look at my arms and my body, I never use numbing cream. Not if you want to, go for it. Don't care. I never did. And there is a level of just like I honor my own self. I'm like, dude, you suffered for this stuff, and it makes it more valuable. And that's what I value. Yeah. Doesn't mean everybody else has to do that, but I would challenge people who are teetering on that of the numbing cream or the anesthesia. Just know if you just breathe through it, first of all, you're going to be fine. I've been tattooing for 30 years. I've yet to have anybody who couldn't do it. So it ain't that fucking hard. It is extremely uncomfortable, but it's temporary. And when it's over, you're going to be a little more pumped, most likely.
High almost, dude. It's like a high.
You get the adrenaline and the endorphins.
Just like fighting.
Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, without hurting people.
So you can see better. Like you can, you know, it's like everything.
That's true.
That's what it feels like. It's just your senses are heightened. You're like ready to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, think about it. Thousands of years ago, we were running through the woods, getting chased by fucking bears and lions. It was a normal experience to release those those endorphins.
Right.
And nowadays, in this sedentary environment we all live in, how often is anyone actually primordially scared of something? You're not. You go to your air-conditioned car, drive to your air-conditioned office. If it's cold outside, you put on your North Face triple-down jacket, scarf, and goggles. Like, we just don't. Our bodies are rarely tested that way for most people. There are people who get up and do crazy shit, but most people know. So when you get tattooed, it definitely does have an endorphin, like almost a healthy thing, healthy for you probably.
Yeah, because that blood flowing makes you feel life like more like minutely, like every little thing feels so much better.
More alive, more vibrant. That's true. And that is the tattoo high. I've had many, and you have too, many clients who've been like, man, dude, they come in, they know it's going to hurt, but you could see they're like, I can't wait to do that. I always feel so good after my tattoo session.
Dude, I think that's the people that are addicted to it. I think that's what they're addicted to.
The endorphin rush.
It's the afterwards. It's not
most
the
of my
probably.
Truly addicted guys. I can tell are into like bring the pain, motherfucker. They're also base jumpers, mountain climbers, race car drivers. You can tell they don't drink a lot of alcohol. They don't do any drugs. They're getting their high from fucking that shit. You know, they're addicted to adrenaline and endorphins, you know, and they gravitate towards getting tattooed because it provides the same release as driving a race car 150 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, I bet, dude.
Yeah.
I've never met a race car driver or anything, but I imagine those dudes are just constantly living life in the fast lane too. You know,
and they're high on that drug, dude. Naturally produced drug. Well, good, dude. This has been fun, man. I'm stoked you came. I'm stoked to vibe with you. You're a sweet dude. I hope we hang out again. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, most likely.
Before we close out, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
Okay. So if you get on Instagram, it's Boney The Tattooer. There is a bunch of hacked accounts out there. That's very important because
touch on that for just a second.
There's a lot of hackers out there trying to impose as me. I think there's probably like 3 of them kind of rotating, but they're trying to give away free tattoos, and I don't do that unless I've never done that, and I haven't planned on doing that. So if you get a message randomly, I'm not doing any contests or anything like that. So don't believe it. Don't believe the hype. But my real Instagram is Boney The Tattooer. The ER is important on the end because I know there's a Boney The Tattoo right now. And my account is verified. Should have the check mark next to it. So
all right, good to know. And your shop name?
I own the shop. It's called Studio 3 Tattoo Parlor. It's Cleveland, Ohio, based in Ohio City. And we just opened about 6 to 8 months ago. So we're still rocking there.
Well, fuck yeah, dude. Good. Best of luck to you. I have no doubt in my mind, getting to know you and seeing your work, you're going to crush it. Yeah, so if you live out that way, or if you don't live out that way, please check out his work. If you're into that hyper-focused realism color work, this man has got it in spades. Thank you again for coming on. Well, my friends, that's it for today. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Everyone out there listening, I don't know what platform you are on, but just to be clear, we are on YouTube. We are on Apple Music. We are on Spotify and X. We're on X and Instagram, Chats and Tatts, 2 T's on Instagram. So please follow me wherever you like to consume and keep the likes, the subscriptions coming, and all the love and support. I've been getting a lot of that, and I need it. This is a new project for me, and I want to tell you guys all from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate all that encouragement. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'll keep these guests coming, and we'll see you next week.